Hi, and welcome to Migraine Realities. I'm Jillian, your host and fellow migraine warrior. I live with chronic migraine and vestibular and hemiplegic migraine. I also recently had brain surgery because I have a number of neurological conditions that cause a lot of pain. Here we get real. We talk about the hard stuff, the stuff that people don't talk about in the open. I hope that by talking about this with each other, we can break the silence, because if we do, then maybe we all feel less alone. Today, I have Kelly with me, and she's 63 and married with one daughter, and she's had migraine since she was a child. So, welcome to the podcast, Kelly.
Oh, it's wonderful being here. I'm
Oh,
excited to share my journey with everybody.
glad to have you. Can you tell us in a nutshell what your migraine journey has been?
My migraine journey has been one that has been rather topsy-turvy since childhood. I remember being 5 years old, laying in my parents' bed in a darkened room, vomiting and getting Phenergan.
Wow.
But the pediatrician at the time just said I had a stomach bug.
Mm,
So all these years with being episodic, I just thought, oh, I have a stomach bug and how it returns on a regular basis.
mm.
I wasn't diagnosed, formally diagnosed, until I was in my mid 20s. Within 5 years of my formal diagnosis, I was diagnosed with intractable chronic daily migraine.
Uh,
I'm also a breast cancer survivor, and I have to share with you that a day with migraine beats my worst day with cancer,
mm.
hands down.
Yeah, I can only imagine. Can you tell us what intractable migraine means?
Intractable means that you have an ongoing migraine 24/7, that you don't respond to abortives, sometimes don't even respond to your rescue.
Mm.
And you have a long list of things that you can try, but nothing works. So essentially, I'm in status, which is a continuous migraine that doesn't respond to medication.
I understand you were a nurse at one time and
Mhm.
now you're a patient. How does it feel to be on the other side of that?
You know, it's been a challenge sometimes. Yes, I'm an advanced practice nurse. I have been on disability for about 20 years,
Mm,
which is one of the most devastating things in my life. Being a nurse and now being a patient, it
mm,
really is difficult because I'm expected to know everything. But in a plus, that means I have the language to be able to describe my pain and signs and symptoms, probably with a little bit more clarity using the terminology that is more medical. My headache specialist and I have a good relationship, and I tell him when I want to be Kelly the nurse.
mm.
And I also share with him, like, okay, it's time for Kelly to be the patient.
That makes a lot of sense. Mhm. You mentioned that you had to go on disability from your career as a nurse. We talked about earlier that you were asked to leave. Why was that?
I was asked to leave my job at a time. It was very much of a surprise because I was told I had taken too much FMLA leave. Because they had said I took too much, I was asked to leave my position because I wasn't able to perform up to an excellent.
Oh boy,
And I miss work every day.
I bet you do.
So it's part of a grieving.
Hmm. And on the topic of grieving, you said you've been off 20 years, and I have been off since 2018, and that's 7 years now for me. I had to leave my job because I couldn't trust my brain. But for you, that decision was taken away from you. Tell
Mhm.
me about that grieving process. How are you now? I know you miss the job every day, but how did you get through the 20 years of grieving?
I think grieving is not a straight line.
Mm,
So there are days where I am more positive and days where I am a little angry about what happened. And I wish I knew then what I know now. The grieving for me was very much of like a sudden withdrawal, especially
mm,
since I had no control over it.
mm,
And thinking that the FMLA would be sufficient to support me, it was not.
Mm.
And I feel rather frustrated and let down by that. But in the grieving, I definitely went through all the formal stages of grieving and sometimes revisit them. Like I have a very good friend who's a nurse, and she will share different experiences with me. And I get all excited because I think my brain still works. So that's very reinforcing in one way.
Hmm. I wanted to talk about uh, s- staying on the track of mental health. You and I had a meeting yesterday scheduled, and you were not able to make it because you had a migraine,
Mhm.
and we rescheduled for today, so it's no big deal. And I certainly am not trying to make you feel bad, but we miss out on things, right?
The missing out, the change in relationships, whether that be work, family, socially, financially, really migraine impacts everything in your life and your mental health.
Mm-hmm.
I remember going through a time where I was with low self-esteem,
Mm-hmm.
feeling no value,
Mm-hmm.
feeling like I was not a productive person in this community,
Mm-hmm.
and it really was very lonesome. I did feel all alone. That was very depressing for me. And I think I have slowly gotten into a place where I'm healthy, and I'd be more than happy to share that adventure.
I would love to hear about that adventure, how you overcame the loneliness, because we all experience that. And part of the program is so that we can help people not feel so alone. So please tell me.
What helps me not feel so alone was I took initiative, really, and asked my headache specialist, what can I do for my mental health? I mean, I just came out and said it. He
Good.
and I are very close. We worked together for over 20 years.
Mm,
So I could say to him, I am at this point. Help me get some guidance so I can get past it. So he suggested that I hook up with a support group or with a
mm.
migraine organization. And that, I tell you, has been a godsend.
Oh,
That
good.
it has given me a sense of purpose, a sense of worth and esteem, and it really has helped my mental health feeling more positive.
Mm-hmm.
And I tend to be a positive person anyway, but having that opportunity to get involved and share my journey and help other people, especially as being a nurse, that has been very rewarding. My mental health is still a challenge every now and again, but like when we had to cancel yesterday, feeling the guilt of having to cancel plans.
Mm-hmm.
We all have friends and family that we've needed to cancel plans. And for me, it evokes a lot of guilt.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh, I'm letting them down. What can I do? I'm going to have to make it up to them. Are they going to understand why? Because I had a friend who is a nurse who we were
Mm-hmm.
supposed to go to the beach one day.
Mm-hmm.
I said I wasn't feeling well, but felt well enough to go. And she's been a lifelong friend and is a nurse. So I thought we could do this. But then she never called me. And later that day, I just happened to be on Facebook and there was a picture of her and her sister at the beach.
Oh, no.
So, talk about feeling left out,
Mm-hmm.
mental health being challenged
Mm-hmm.
and disappointed, whether it be in not being able to work with you yesterday or again,
Mm-hmm.
not being able to make it to the beach. I asked her, you put a picture on Facebook, but you never got back to me.
Mm-hmm.
And her response was, well, I knew you didn't feel good, so I didn't want to ask you.
Mm. She
And I
took that
think
choice away from you.
yes. And I think a lot of people who know that you're not well, I hate using the word sick.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're not feeling well, they do sometimes not ask because, oh, she's canceled on us before. Maybe she'll do it again. And that
Mm-hmm.
takes a lot of effort and some assertiveness to be able to say, I had a migraine. This is what I could do. This is what I couldn't do today.
Mm-hmm.
And, what can we do to meet again or to do something social?
And it takes a lot of guts because
Mhm.
that's a vulnerable position. But I know I struggle with people taking that decision out of my
Mhm.
hands. I think people have the best intentions, but I would love people to understand that please give us the option
Mhm.
to tell you what will work. Let me tell you what I can do.
Right.
And then you tell me how that fits in with the plans. And together we
Mhm.
make the decision. I think that makes much more sense
Oh,
than
yes.
being left out. It's much
Mhm.
more fair, but I know people come from a good place.
Right. And I think that's one thing I have to step back and remember that people, even family, including my own close family, who have been with me when I've lost my vision and through all my hospitalizations, that I don't think they always get how I'm feeling.
Mm-hmm.
And even though I'm a nurse, that's not going to help me with my family because I need to look at what do they need to hear from me.
Mm-hmm.
And it does take being assertive and talk to a friend or a family member because you're opening yourself up.
Mm-hmm.
Am I going to feel less worthy? How are they going to
Mm-hmm.
look at me? Will they see me as broken?
Mm-hmm.
Will they see me as, the migraine who lives within Kelly instead of Kelly having a migraine? And that's very important to me that they see me and not my migraine.
You mentioned Kelly with a migraine. I love that. Tell me more about that.
I am very nervous when I go to new social events where maybe one or two people know that I have intractable chronic daily migraine and vestibular migraine
Mm-hmm.
because they all of a sudden treat you different. They either don't want you to get stressed and they're always on you about, did you have something to drink? Do you need this? Do you need that?
Mm-hmm.
Which is very kind. They're coming
Mm-hmm.
from the goodness of their heart. But
Yes.
again, to me, that's just a reminder that they see my migraine before they really acknowledge me.
Mm.
And that is very frustrating. And like you said, having decisions taken away or not being able to make them adds to that feeling broken and feeling that everyone just sees the migraine part of you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a great attitude. You just mentioned that you have intractable migraine. I wanted to touch on that a little bit because to talk about chronification, it's kind of a new buzzword that I know you have some suggestions around that.
Yeah. It is very much of a new buzzword.
Hmm.
I kind of feel like I fit the picture of chronification.
Hmm.
It happens to me with not being diagnosed until so late in my migraine journey.
Hmm.
So I think we need to educate ourselves as well as our general practitioners as to migraine the disease. There were so many signs and no one recognized them.
Hmm.
So that again, I'm behind the eight ball before I even get started. And then with having tried over 40 medications, it just begins to get worse because I'm
Hmm.
not responding to anything
Hmm.
so that the migraine just carries on, which is what led to me being intractable. My suggestion is that you start treating your attack as soon as you feel it coming, because I think that makes a world of difference. And research has shown that the sooner you treat your attack, it will be less intense, less in time, less duration, and you will have a better recovery in the long run. So I think it's important to remember that's not just a personal, oh, I need to take it early. And I know that decision is hard sometimes, especially with me being intractable. How do I know when I need to take something?
Hmm.
And that took, I have to admit, that took a number of years to realize the subtle signs and symptoms that was like, okay, you need to take an abortive now.
Hmm.
And
Sometimes it can be difficult. There are, well, some people may say four, some people may say five different phases of the migraine attack that people may not know. And I'll just briefly mention them is the prodrome, which means you're going into a migraine, and then the aura that some people may have or some or not, and then the actual head pain phase. And you can have symptoms this whole time, whether you recognize the prodrome symptoms or not. So you have the prodrome, you have the aura, and then the actual head pain, still having symptoms, and then the postdrome, which means you're recovering, again, still having symptoms. They may be different. And then there's the interictal phase, which means the in between. What you just talked about reminds me sometimes we don't know, are we going into a migraine or are we coming out? Sometimes it feels like I don't know which way is up being chronic. is I don't always recognize. I know for me, yawning is a big
Hmm.
thing. That's a big signal for me. I was wondering, your signs are more subtle,
Hmm.
but I wonder if it helps make chronification more likely
Hmm.
if you're not recognizing your symptoms. Tell me some of your symptoms that let you know you have a migraine coming, even if they're subtle.
It took me a number of years and it's been a process. I don't expect people to know their subtleties right away because it is
Hmm.
a journey and every migraine is different and every person is different.
Hmm.
But for me, what happened yesterday was the fact that I started to have tingling, which is one of my signs.
Where do you feel
Like pins and
tingling?
needles feeling.
Where?
My face, my scalp, my ears, my nose, my tongue, my lips, the whole
So
nine
your
yards.
head.
Yes, and my
Okay.
chest.
Oh, wow.
So I know the face and scalp, I don't get as alarmed. But when the
Okay.
chest starts to tingle, then I know it's like if I haven't taken an abortive, I better take one that's going to act very quickly.
Okay.
I also get increased ear pain because ear pain is something with my vestibular migraine that I tend to live with.
Mm-hmm.
Then again, that's a sign that I need to be aware of.
Huh.
I'm feeling nauseous.
Mm-hmm.
I don't always feel nauseous, but it may just be I feel extra thirsty, an increase in urination. And that putting those things all together is really a good way for me to anticipate an attack so that I can intervene as early as possible.
Yes. I have some of the same symptoms, the increased urination, the thirst. Do you get neck pain?
Yes, shoulder and neck pain. And that's like who comes first, the chicken or the egg? So I'm not sure which comes first, but it's
Right.
there.
I wonder the same thing too sometimes. Am I getting tense and I lock up because migraine's coming, or is that a symptom? And I do
Mhm.
know it is a symptom in quite a few people.
Right.
How did you discover? Did you track your symptoms or did you use an app or just keep it in the back of your mind?
Oh, thank you for asking. There are many apps available to track your migraine.
Hmm.
I tried a couple of them, but found them very upsetting, depressing, and very frustrating because they ask you, when did your migraine start and when did it finish? Well, when you're chronic, there is no beginning and end.
Hmm.
And I really started to get depressed knowing that I was intractable, but actually seeing it on the app was more of a reality shock.
Mm.
So what I did was some of it was just learning my body and the subtle things that were changing and putting that back in the files of my head. But I also have a very unique way of journaling and keeping track of my migraine.
Do you want to share?
Yes, it's called the stoplight theory. I have a date book, like a regular size date book that I
Hmm.
use for my headache.
Hmm.
What it means, or what I have worked, is the red light means, of course, stop. Like I am totally incapacitated. I can't do anything. My meds aren't working, just that you are on the couch or in bed. The yellow is I can do some stuff. I may not be able to do it 100%, but I can do some stuff, whether it be in the same efficiency, maybe not, but that you can do some things.
Hmm.
And then the green for go is, oh my gosh, I can do things. I can walk outside. I can look out the window. So if you think about a stoplight, it was very helpful. I'm lucky that my headache specialist is just as involved with my stoplight theory because he's like, I have to ask you just for documentation, what is your pain level? And he knows I hate that question. But when I started to use the stoplight, it really helped him with what's my quality of life.
Right.
Very much asks me after the pain scale number, immediately followed with, so tell me about your quality of life. How
Hmm.
often are you on the couch? How often are you in the recliner? I'm very lucky that someone does ask about my quality of life. But I think then you can track your migraine, no matter how you do it, it will reinforce the relationship that you have with your provider because you can actually present what's going on, how you're responding, what the signs were. And I think that can only help the relationship and your treatment plan.
Great point.
Mhm. So why I hate pain scale numbers, and that's a pet peeve of mine. So my little soapbox is your pain scales were developed for post-op patients,
Okay.
like general surgery, post-op pain. Well, somehow, because it said for pain, people tried to transition it to other body systems and other diseases. So
Hmm.
migraine was one of those diseases that
Hmm.
was like, oh, I have pain. We should use the pain scale.
Hmm.
I don't like it because what's important to me is my quality of life.
It's
The
a good
pain
point.
number is a number,
Hmm.
but how am I reacting in daily life? How has it impacted me? Everybody who knows me knows that I prefer something that's more quality of life oriented rather than me just spewing a number. Because what might be an 8 one day, I'm not sure would be an 8 the next day.
It's true because depending on your mental state and where you are in the different phases that we just talked about, there's too much that goes into it
Mhm.
to give it a number. And
Absolutely.
I live with chronic cluster headaches, and they say, tell me, is this your worst pain imaginable? Well, no. I mean, a migraine is awful, but
Right.
a cluster headache, that's a completely different scale. In fact, we have a special scale just for cluster headache because it goes past a 10. And
Right.
I know that's hard to believe if you've never experienced cluster headache, but the pain scale, we need to come up with something better. Like you said, the quality of life scale, whether it's a stoplight, whether it's, are you sitting up on a couch? Are you lying down in bed? Are you sleeping in the bathroom? It's just a different scale.
And there are some days where an 8 might be very devastating and
Hmm.
I'm only quasi vertical, as I say. But then there are times when I can be an 8, but yet still have a little bit of function.
Hmm.
So I'm not saying that my pain is any less or I'm denying I have the pain. It just is a different perspective.
Hmm.
I respond to that sometimes hour to hour. When people say, how are you doing today? I'm like, well,
Hmm.
this hour is. And I don't think everybody understands that sometimes you really do go hour to hour. I think that people need to know that.
That's very true. Wow. Good stuff.
Can I tell what about people saying that are positive and negative when you have a migraine, like those suggestions? You know, when someone says, "Oh, I have migraine," and someone might say, "Oh, well, just drink more water."
Okay.
Like
Okay.
take Tylenol. That takes my headache away.
Oh, yeah. When people ask you your pain scale, do they also make suggestions?
Yes. And there are some positive experiences with that and some negative experiences.
Mm,
The negative, or at least the not helpful, is when people try and tell you, oh, just take something over the counter like I do for my headache and yours will go away.
mm,
I have heard putting cream of tartar under your tongue cures migraine.
hmm.
Have you had enough water to drink? Do you need to eat? And I find that very frustrating, again, because it focuses just on the migraine part of me. They really don't get it.
Hmm.
I'm much more nurtured when people say, what can I do for you? Whether I am out and I need to come home or at home and people say, you know what, I'm making extra chili tonight.
Hmm.
Would you like some so you don't have to worry about cooking?
That's a really great
Yeah.
word for it, nurtured.
Hmm.
We feel more nurtured if people ask, what do we need?
Hmm.
To me, it's very helpful. I also have a list on the back of the door in the bedroom of suggestions,
Hmm.
even not the cream of tartar, but suggestions like uh, wet washcloth. Because when I'm in the middle of it, I forget. Take this medicine, try this. Maybe some muscle rub. Nope, I can't do the smells. Heat on the back of my neck. Even if it's put my feet in hot water with an ice pack on the back of my neck. Sounds wacky, it works for some.
Right.
I make a list of all those suggestions because I feel hopeless when I'm in the middle of it, especially if it's gone several days or I'm becoming more intractable. I look at that list on the back and it saved me quite a few times.
Hmm. I have what's called a migraine action plan, and I have developed that with my headache specialist. There are copies of one and how to do a migraine action plan in the research and literature.
Hmm.
It's endorsed by the American Headache Association.
Is that where people would find that?
Yes, you can go, or actually, if you even just go to a browser
Hmm.
and just put in migraine headache, a whole list will come up. And if you go to images, you will see all the variations of headache scales and different approaches that put into action what your plan should be.
That's a great
And
idea.
I have that written, and most of the time, my headache specialist and I review it at every visit because something may have changed or we want to try something new. Something didn't provide me with relief. The components of the migraine action plan include a little bit about your history, your current status, how you present with your migraine, and then the different steps you should take in treating your attack. Like step one would be an ice pack,
Hmm.
or some people respond better to heat.
Hmm.
So those non-pharmacological interventions should be step number one. If those don't work, then you move on to step two, which are your abortives. And even
Hmm.
within that, my doctor and I, my headache specialist and I have prioritized which one should I start with. And if that one fails, like 2A is what I start with. If that doesn't work, you have 2B.
Hmm.
So we have that, which is helpful.
Hmm.
And then you move into your rescue plan, which is usually either you have a medicine to give yourself that is supposed to prevent you from going into the emergency room or help you make that decision I need to go because it is not helping.
Hmm.
Now, I have reviewed this with my husband on a refrigerator. So he and his been we've been married for 35 years, so he knows. But even some subtle signs he's not only aware of, and I can tell him, okay, I'm at like 2A now. So just to let you know. And I make sure, even if I'm alone, I will write down the best I can what med I took.
Great
Or I
idea.
will turn the pill container upside down.
Okay,
I
that's
know
a
I took
great
that med.
idea. I love that.
And within the medications, I color coded with highlighters, like step number two, 2A is the one that has the pink highlighter on it.
Hmm.
And the 2B then is the one who has the green. So
Wow.
I may not be able to remember the name of the medicine, and my husband may not, in his moment, trying to help me feel better, remember the name of it either, but can match colors. And that's very helpful because if I can't express anything, he will be able to put two and two together, looking at the action plan and being able to know what I took that worked and what I took that didn't provide me any relief.
Now imagine you do that so carefully, and I do too because of brain fog.
Right.
Let's talk about that. I don't know that people realize how much we experience brain fog. There's an example out there. You can look this up on the internet. It's a video of a female sportscaster where she's talking about the game and all of a sudden her words become garbled and the words coming out are not what she's trying to say, and you can see her starting to get confused. It was thought that she was having a stroke, so she went to the emergency room, and it turned out that it was part of migraine, and the cognitive dysfunction can look like that. It
Mhm.
can be brain fog, and I think that's a reason that we all keep these lists and we can get confused. And I think I'd like to talk more about brain fog and how that affects you.
It affected me before I knew it. I was always told I didn't have migraine for so long,
Mm.
and I would have these episodes of words not coming to me
Mm.
or putting them in the wrong order in a sentence.
When you
Getting
were young.
and
Oh.
try and cope with that when you're in school or college. So that was very different. When I look back now, I had brain fog forever. But still to this day, it affects me with not being able to put sentences together, not being
Yes.
able to think of words
Or
or
interview questions.
interview.
Yes.
But I don't get upset about because I know it's part of my prodrome and part of my head pain time.
Hmm.
It is very frustrating that people aren't going to understand. Or if I, like now, people around me will know, I'll start getting my words all jumbled and I'll say, okay, it's a migraine thing.
Hmm.
And so people are now expecting that from me, but they know when it happens that really it's just part of the disease.
Hmm.
And it's hard to have your train of thought. You might start a sentence and just totally forget.
Absolutely. For example, I don't like to think of questions ahead of time because I'm just going to forget them. It's just a fact of life. I have a migraine right now. People might not be able to tell. I've taken my abortive medications and it's helping the pain and the nausea, but trying to remember a question, and that's why I've been writing words down every now and then so that I can remember to bring that up. I feel stupid sometimes,
Mhm.
and I like to think I have a really good vocabulary. I read a lot. I always have. But sometimes I can't come up with the most basic words. When I'm talking to my doctor, they ask me about a medication. I literally cannot think of the name of one of my main medications, and it can make it so frustrating.
Mhm.
And I feel very broken when that
Yes.
happens.
Oh, yeah. I feel very uninformed and uneducated, but really, I'm not.
Hmm.
And I think that trying to communicate to people that I kind of live in a state of forgetting what I was going to say,
Hmm.
or I couldn't think of words. Because I think most people have had that happen just by happenstance.
Hmm.
So they kind of know, oh my gosh, that's kind of embarrassing or frustrating that you can't remember what you were thinking of 2 seconds ago. But I think it's very real brain fog. I can have different levels of brain fog. There are some where I can recall a little and meander around the house. Then there are those that I say, don't even talk to me because I can't talk back. My sentences aren't going to come, my words are not going to come. So it's just not happening today.
Yesterday, I didn't know a migraine was coming. I put chicken in the slow cooker and burned it. I didn't know you could burn things in a slow cooker.
Me either.
Then I thought, well, I have some extra sauce. I can make this work. I'll just put it in the saucepan and reduce it a little. And then I went for a walk with my dog. Thank goodness I had it on low. I burned it. I felt like a complete failure. My husband works hard. I wanted to have a nice home cooked meal for him. And so not only did he, I mean, I wasted food. I I could have got the house on fire.
Mhm. I think
And
when you have those instances and that feeling that contributes to, oh my God, I feel alone right now.
frightening.
It is very frightening. And not only just the emotion that goes along with, I feel so alone, is the fact that you want to say, I'm a reasonably intelligent person. I
Right.
really can speak, but it's just not in my ability right now today.
Right. And then people want to finish your sentences.
Mhm. Or help you think
And
of words.
oh, and I think that's a good time to be assertive,
Mhm.
to say, okay, I have migraine brain. Please, I either, give up talking for that moment and not try to finish the sentence, or please bear with me. I have migraine brain. Give me a chance. Just, give me some grace right now. And I think that's a great time to be assertive.
Teaching opportunity.
Hmm.
Teaching helps you learn how to be assertive, how to feel empowered. And also, it's for the person who you're talking with for them to learn more about migraine.
It's
Look
a
at
great
that.
point.
So maybe they will understand it's more than just head pain and it's more than just nausea. It really can affect how you think.
That message really needs to get out there. That is why I had to stop working. I had a 30-year career in HR, human resources. I loved it. I loved what I did. I really felt like I could make a difference. But I couldn't trust my own brain.
Mhm.
I couldn't do the simple math. I was in a senior position and couldn't do simple math. And I, for the first time in my life, was going to get written up. And I thought, this is just, this is crazy. I can't do simple math. When I was not in the migraine attack, I looked at it and thought, well, I know how to do that. And I was asked, well, then why did you do it wrong? I have no idea because back then I did not know about the cognitive dysfunction
Right.
of migraine. It can be very severe.
And I didn't find that I was very well prepared from my doctors on my journey about how intense the brain fog and the poor concentration and the vocabulary issues really could be.
Mhm,
But then again, learning my signs and symptoms and being more familiar with myself and talking with other people about migraine, it really then worked on, oh my gosh, I can do things and I am not broken.
mhm,
And people will give you grace. First, you have to give yourself grace
mhm,
and say, this is part of migraine disease. It's going to happen. It did happen. And as much as you want to share with the people or person around you, it's really up to you. But it is a little scary when we'll have a delivery from Amazon and I don't even remember ordering something from Amazon.
mm-mm,
There are times where my husband will say, well, what did you order that came today?
mhm. No
I'm like,
idea.
exactly.
Nothing. I got nothing.
I said, well, let's open it and it'll be a surprise.
Yes. Let's both find out.
Yeah.
That's funny. What would you tell people that are maybe at the beginning of their migraine journey, whether they've been diagnosed or not?
One of the things that I think will help when you're early in your journey is that to partner with a provider. Most medical schools, in the 4 years of medical school, only get a few hours of education on headache, let alone migraine.
Mhm,
Then to add to that, the different types of migraine.
mhm,
So your provider may not be as educated to help you pick up the signs and symptoms. And I think experiences like this and doing some reading on migraine really is a godsend that you need to take advantage of what's there to increase your education. And sometimes I had a general practitioner who didn't get migraine. I mean, he just didn't get it.
mm.
And one visit, he said, you know, Kelly, I learned more from you than I did in medical school.
Oh my.
And when I have to work with other people who have migraine, I think of you and what you've been through and what we have shared.
Wow.
Yes, that's very nice that you remember what I say and think it's of value. But on the other hand, it's very scary that he did not have the education and that I was his purpose for education.
Yes.
There is no cure for migraine. And what works with one person may not work with another. So I think when it comes to working with your provider, it is a team effort because you need to be driving the boat.
Hmm.
You are the one who knows your body the best and can communicate that efficiently.
Hmm. And what are some good resources that you found to educate yourself?
There are a number of organizations that their primary goal is migraine. There's Miles for Migraine. There's like the National Headache Foundation. So there are a number of organizations that can support you in either truly having support groups
Mm,
and or supporting you with having multiple things for resources on their websites. Several of the headache societies and foundations, if you go to their website, they one of the tabs they have is resources or how to find a doctor. So I think those are all things that you can take advantage of that you might not know. There are multiple organizations that will help you with accessing support, either through their own support groups and being able to help educate yourself. And there are some that actually have hints for you to work with your care provider.
hmm. Those are very helpful. I'd like to point out a few minutes ago when I told you we're about to wrap up, you let me know that your nose is starting to tingle. And for you, that's a sign that a migraine is coming.
Mhm.
And I wanted to point out you're starting to lose your words.
Right.
Is that an indicator that one is coming? Is that part of it?
Yes. Like we talked about the brain fog. Definitely the language and the verbal for me yeah, see, there you go.
Mm.
But you're right. So yes, everybody, I do have a migraine. It's probably an 8. And now the
Oh,
tingling, then I know my body, and I know that I need to take my meds and rest and put my ice hat on.
okay. And then I'm
But there
so
comes the
sorry, but
guilt with having to end the interview.
no, we have talked for a long time. You've been so great to interview. Thank you so much for being
Oh,
here.
it's a pleasure, and I
And
feel very honored. So please, right back
thanks.
at you.
Thank you for listening to Migraine Realities. If today has been difficult for you, if you're in a difficult place, maybe you feel alone, thank you so much for being here. And I really hope some of this has helped you in some way not feel so alone and has given you some ideas of how you can live a better life with migraine. That's a wrap.